There is a pervasive and dangerous illusion in modern firearm culture. It is the belief that a defensive tool is a magic talisman, purchased, locked in a safe, and expected to ward off evil simply by the sound of a slide racking or a pump action cycling. That is an amateur fallacy. When a reinforced door splinters at 3 in the morning, the human body undergoes a violent physiological shift. Your heart rate accelerates instantly toward 180 beats per minute. A massive adrenaline dump strips away your fine motor skills. Your peripheral vision collapses into a tunnel, and auditory exclusion deafens you to the world. In that fraction of a second, a psychological deterrent is entirely useless. What you require is mechanical certainty. You need a proven, uncompromising piece of engineering designed to halt a violent threat with absolute, surgical precision. Today, we are stripping away the myths and examining the raw metallurgy, what's the historical pedigree, and the internal ballistics of the platforms that actually protect American homes. We are looking at defensive tools built for longevity and authority. And as we progress toward our definitive #1 choice, you will see a return to an ironclad philosophy where simplicity triumphs over complexity. If you respect the heritage of well-crafted firearms and value unvarnished truth, you are in the right place. Welcome to Gun Sage. When the parameters of home defense require operating in the tightest possible confines without sacrificing terminal performance, the traditional rifle architecture presents a distinct problem. Firing a standard 5.56mm carbine in a narrow, unyielding hallway without hearing protection produces a concussive overpressure and blinding muzzle flash that will instantly shatter your situational awareness. The solution to this specific or in a catastrophic environment is the Sig Sauer MCX Rattler. Picking up the Rattler feels like gripping a dense, meticulously machined ingot of aerospace-grade aluminum. It is radically compact, yet it exudes a heavy, purposeful balance. The mechanical brilliance of this platform lies in its departure from the AR-15's direct impingement system. When the Rattler utilizes a proprietary short-stroke gas piston system featuring dual overhead recoil springs housed entirely within the upper receiver. This complete elimination of the rear buffer tube allows the weapon to operate flawlessly even with the stock folded. At 5 pounds and 2 ounces, it is a masterclass in weight distribution, but the true tactical advantage is the caliber, chambered in .300 Blackout. And the Rattler uses a microscopic 5.5-inch barrel with a remarkably fast one in 5 twist rate. This aggressive rifling is mathematically necessary to stabilize heavy, 220 grains subsonic projectiles. When paired with a dedicated suppressor, this platform is astonishingly quiet. You retain your hearing, your night vision, and your ability to communicate. Those massive projectiles, moving at roughly 1,000 feet per second, it deliver a devastating transfer of energy into soft tissue without the hypervelocity over penetration that threatens innocent lives in adjacent rooms. Originally engineered for Tier 1 special mission units requiring maximum terminal performance in clandestine raids, the Rattler is an uncompromising defensive tool. This level of future-proof engineering commands a premium, often retailing around $2,500 to $2,700. But it buys an unparalleled tactical advantage. Stepping from specialized suppression to the absolute baseline of pragmatic defense, we must acknowledge the undeniable authority of the modern striker-fired sidearm. Throughout the late 20th century, the search for a ubiquitous, utterly reliable duty pistol led to a design that many mechanical purists initially resisted. The Glock 19, specifically the Generation 5 iteration, possesses the aesthetic charm of a cinder block. It does not evoke the deep emotion of blued steel or polished walnut. It is a utilitarian slab of polymer and Tenifer-treated steel. Yet, its brutalist efficiency makes it one of the most lethal and trusted defensive tools on the planet. Gripping the Generation 5 Glock 19, you immediately notice the absence of finger grooves, offering a universal interface that anchors into the hand under stress. At a mere 23.6 ounces unloaded, this sidearm relies on a modified Browning camlock system. Glock's safe action system integrates the safety directly into the face of the trigger, When your hands are slick with sweat and shaking from adrenaline, there are no external levers to fumble. You draw, you press through the consistent 5.5-pound trigger pull, and the weapon fires every single time. The Generation 5 incorporates a cold hammer, forged marksman barrel measuring exactly 4.0 inches, delivering an inherent mechanical accuracy that easily holds a 2.5 MOA group at 25 yards. Firing modern plus P hollow points, you are driving a 124 grains projectile at 1,150 feet per second. It is the standard issue for global special operations and the foundation of civilian defense, with an entry price hovering between $400 and $650. An intruder facing this platform is walking into a relentless wall of 15 precisely placed rounds. It is the time-tested king of pragmatic reliability. Yet, there are threat matrices where a sidearm simply lacks the kinetic energy required. But the dimensions of a home demand an ultra-compact footprint. In the armored transports and narrow, ancient alleyways of the Middle East, mechanized infantry faced this exact dilemma. They needed the terminal ballistics of a full-length rifle housed in the chassis of a submachine gun. The Israeli Defense Forces answered this with the IWI Tavor X95. Shouldering this bullpup rifle is a jarring experience for the traditional American marksman. The balance is heavily shifted to the rear, anchoring deep into the shoulder pocket and rendering the front end remarkably fast to transition. It feels like a piece of industrial machinery. The engineering here is ruggedly brilliant. By moving the action behind the trigger group, the X95 houses a full 16.5-inch, cold hammer forged, and chrome-lined barrel within a microscopic overall length of 26 inches. You retain the full muzzle velocity of 2,900 feet per second because you are not sacrificing barrel length, while the 1 in 7 twist rate elegantly stabilizes heavier defensive projectiles. Mechanically, it operates on a long-stroke gas piston system heavily inspired by the legendary AK-47, driving a massive rotating bolt. This means heavy components are moving under significant gas pressure, making the action incredibly forgiving of carbon fouling, sand, and severe neglect. In a residential hallway, the X95 allows the defender to tuck the weapon tight against the body, making it physically nearly impossible for an assailant to leverage the barrel and strip the weapon away. Weighing 7 pounds and 14 ounces, the mass absorbs the recoil impulse, allowing for rapid, controlled strings of fire. With a street price generally sitting around $1,750, it is a masterstroke of compact, rifle-caliber engineering. If the bullpup manual of arms feels alien, and the defender demands the familiar architecture of America's rifle pushed to its absolute threshold for close quarters. The conversation immediately shifts to the Daniel Defense MK-18, born from the United States Special Operations Command's specific requirement for a maneuverable, hard-hitting carbine for the brutal urban clearances of Iraq. The MK-18 is a mechanical masterpiece. When gripping this weapon by its rigid quad rail feels like taking hold of a high-performance roll cage. It is dense, aggressive, and perfectly balanced at 5 pounds and 14 ounces. The heart of this platform is a brutally short 10.3-inch cold hammer forged barrel. Daniel Defense utilizes a proprietary metallurgy and heavy chrome lining designed specifically to withstand the searing temperatures of sustained, suppressed, fully automatic fire. Operating on a direct impingement system, the carbine-length gas tube and carefully enlarged gas port are tuned to ensure unquestionable reliability even when the system is heavily fouled. Pushing a standard 5.56 NATO cartridge out of this short barrel yields roughly 2,400 feet per second, while the 1 in 7 twist expertly stabilizes the heavier 77 grains open tip match projectiles. The tactical advantage for the homeowner is immense. Navigating the fatal funnels of doorways and staircases is fluid, preventing the telegraphing of your position around corners. It is also vital to correct a persistent myth regarding metallurgy and ballistics here. Light, Hyper-fast 55 grains projectiles fired from this platform tend to yaw and violently fragment upon striking standard drywall, often posing a significantly lower over-penetration risk than heavy handgun hollow points or shotgun slugs. The MK-118 is an uncompromising, professional-grade instrument, commanding a price tag often exceeding $2,000. It is the zenith of the direct impingement CQB platform, moving from direct gas impingement to sophisticated autonomous gas regulation. We examine a shotgun that redefines the parameters of the 12-gauge. The United States Marine Corps required a breaching and combat shotgun that could survive the abrasive sands of the global war on terror. It cycled thousands of rounds without a drop of lubrication and accept the added weight of optics and illumination without inducing malfunctions. The answer was the Benelli M4 Tactical. Taking the M4 into your hands feels remarkably different from a traditional pump gun. It feels like a precisely tuned, premium Italian instrument. It weighs 8 pounds and 6 ounces, and that weight is deliberate, soaking up the punishing recoil of defensive Magnum loads. The barrel is a cold hammer forged 18.5-inch tube capable of reliably putting standard 1-ounce slugs into a 2 MOA group at 50 yards, pushing them at an authoritative 1,300 feet per second. But the true genius of the M4 is concealed beneath the handguard. It is the auto-regulating gas-operated system, or ARGO. By abandoning complex gas rings and their inherent carbon fouling, Benelli engineered Dual, a self-cleaning stainless steel pistons located just ahead of the chamber. These short-stroke pistons violently tap the bolt carrier directly. It is a brilliant, clean, and fiercely reliable mechanism that completely bypasses the inertia-driven systems of their sporting line. Intruders do not fear the Benelli M4 simply because it is a 12-gauge. They fear it because this autonomous system allows a defender to put 8 rounds of heavy buckshot on target in less than 2 seconds with practically zero muzzle rise. Unquestionable, battle-proven autonomy comes at a premium, with an MSRP sitting at a steep $2,200. It is a surgical tool for overwhelming close-range dominance. There are moments, however, when the threat matrix dictates a complete departure from semi-automatic complexity. In scenarios of catastrophic failure, where spare magazines, replacement recoil springs, and clean lubrication are a distant memory, the mechanical independence of a premium wheel gun becomes an absolute necessity. The Smith & Wesson Model 686 Plus, chambered in the devastating .357 Magnum, is not a piece of nostalgia. It is a dedicated tool for severe environments. Gripping the contoured rubber of this revolver is like grasping a stainless steel bank vault. It is dense, perfectly timed, and radiates an aura of absolute permanence. Weighing 39 ounces unloaded, the mass of this 4-inch barrel revolver actively fights muzzle flip. Mechanically, this platform was built upon Smith & Wesson's robust L frame. This specific piece of engineering was the historical solution to the top strap cutting and forcing cone fractures that plagued older, lighter revolvers subjected to continuous Magnum chamber pressures. It is built to outlast its owner, firing single action. The trigger breaks with a glass-like crispness at roughly 3 pounds, easily holding a 1.5 MOA group. But in a defensive scenario, you will rely on the heavy, deliberate 10 to 12-pound double-action pull. There are no extractors to slip over a torn rim, no gas ports to clog. If a primer fails to detonate, you do not execute a complex malfunction drill. You simply pull the trigger again, rotating the fluted cylinder to the next live chamber, driving a defensive hollow point at a blistering 1,450 feet per second. The terminal ballistics ensure deep, decisive tissue damage, while the blinding concussive flash in a dark hallway acts as a profound disorienting force against an attacker. With a real-world price of around $850, the 686 Plus offers a heritage of undeniable mechanical certainty. And finally, we arrive at the absolute pinnacle of home defense. The #1 position belongs to a platform that strips away every ounce of unnecessary complexity and relies on raw, manual force and indestructible metallurgy. The weapon that defines the gun sage philosophy of uncompromising reliability is the Mossberg 590A. 1. There is a distinct, visceral reaction when you pick up this shotgun. It feels like a solid, unyielding block of military-grade ordnance. It is heavy, it is cold, and it radiates a brutal kind of purpose. Unlike sporting arms designed for upland birds, the 590A1 was forged for the trenches, the jungles, and the unforgiving concrete of urban conflict. The specifications tell a story of overbuilt resilience. At a substantial 7 pounds and 4 ounces, the weapon features a 20-inch, heavy-walled, Parkerized steel barrel designed to withstand crushing impacts without warping. The brilliance of this platform lies in its absolute manual dependence. It utilizes heavy-duty, dual extractors and twin steel action bars that categorically prevent the forearm from binding under the stress of rapid manipulation. Furthermore, it abandons the plastic components of civilian models, utilizing an aluminum trigger guard and a high-visibility, top-mounted aluminum safety button. It does not care about cyclic rates, gas pressures, or battery life. The cycle of operation is entirely dictated by the physical authority you apply to the pump. This mechanical masterpiece was the only pump-action shotgun on Earth to survive the United States military's unforgiving mil-spec 3443E test. A brutal assessment requiring the firing of 3,000 rounds of full-power buckshot without a single failure or parts breakage. Pushing standard defensive lead at 1,600 feet per second, it delivers a devastating fist-sized pattern at typical hallway distances of 10 to 15 feet, instantly eliminating the threat of near misses. In a grid-down, true survival scenario, this is a defensive tool that can sit in a closet for a decade, covered in dust, and fire with devastating authority the exact moment you demand it to. Available on surplus racks and local shops for around $650, it is the cheapest, most reliable life insurance policy forged in steel. Ultimately, you can study the metallurgy, analyze the twist rates, and purchase the finest hardware available. But a firearm is merely an inert assembly of steel, aluminum, and a polymer. It possesses no courage, no instinct, and no will to survive. The unvarnished truth is that the most effective tool is the one you have mastered under pressure. True mechanical certainty is not purchased across a glass counter. It is forged through hundreds of hours of dry fire, thousands of rounds sent downrange, and a relentless commitment to hardening your own psychological response to violence. You must build the muscular and mental pathways required to operate these defensive tools flawlessly when your central nervous system is in full revolt. Do not simply collect firearms, become a student of the craft, become a tactician. I want to hear from the veterans, the active law enforcement officers, and the dedicated mechanical purists in our audience. Take to the comments section and share your real-world experiences with these platforms. What specific tool sits secured beside your bed? And what historical or mechanical pedigree makes you trust it with your family's life? Let us build a serious repository of proven knowledge down there. Stay sharp, trust in your training, and